Hey up guys, I'm Mason, the blind wrestling fan, and this is the WITD Weekly podcast number 12, where we're about to take a look at the past week in WWE. If you enjoy this episode, well, you know what to do. Smackdown. To kick things off, let's talk about the women's division, and honestly guys, I wasn't that impressed with what we got this week, which was a pair of women's tag team matches thrown together in the middle of the show that felt like they were just trying to get them over and done with and out of the way. First off, we got a match between the Riot Squad and the team of Tamina and Natalya with Billie Kay at ringside. At first, it seemed like we were going to get Tamina and Billie, but then Natalya made her entrance and even commentary was confused. Cole wondered if maybe Billie was trying to be a manager at this point. The match itself, which was fairly short and inconsequential, saw the Riot Squad work well as a team, hitting a double drop kick on Natalya, a double Russian leg sweep on Tamina, who was promptly rolled up by Liv, and the Riot Squad picked up the win. This felt like it was just there to give the Riot Squad a quick and easy win to build them up and face the women's tag team champions, which would be fine if they stood a chance of winning, but we all know that in the end they're just going to get fed to the superior Charlotte Flair and her worthless jobber tag team partner Asuka, who just happens to be the Raw Women's Champion. Bianca Belair and SmackDown Women's Champion Sasha Banks faced off against the team of Carmella and Bayley. Of course, Reginald was at ringside. Now there was slightly more meat on the bone here, but only a bit. Towards the beginning of the match, Belair and Banks hit a double team move that Cole didn't even bother to try and call, so God knows what happened there. During a commercial break, Carmella hit Belair with a super kick to the arm, and when they got back from the break, Bayley was working it to try and neutralise Bianca's power, but Belair was still able to hit a vertical suplex on Bayley. Eventually, Sasha tagged in and she ran wild, hitting some offense on Carmella, but the finish of the match saw Reginald break up the bank statement, get slapped off the apron, and Carmella capitalising on the distraction by hitting a Mela Buster and capturing the victory for the heels. I don't understand WWE's reluctance to just put some effort in when it comes to the women's division sometimes. To me, this felt like a case of, the Royal Rumble's still about a month away, how can we fill time? And rather than doing something cool like a series of qualifying matches that would lead up to a multi-woman number one contenders match in a couple of weeks, they just gave Sasha the Asuka treatment, sticking her in a pointless women's tag match that had no stakes, no consequences, and was frankly a waste of time. Hopefully, next week things will be a bit better. We'll be a little bit closer to the Royal Rumble, and they can actually start building to what feels like the inevitable Banks and Belair match that we're going to get. In ring, that match will be good either way, but I definitely think that they need to put in the legwork in order to make it an interesting story. It was a pretty simple week for the newly crowned Intercontinental Champion Big E, who faced off in a non-title match against Baron Corbin. Cutler and Blake, the Knights of the Lone Wolf, were at ringside, and Sami Zayn was on commentary. The majority of the match saw Zayn and Graves rambling on about the conspiracy against Sami, whilst Cole desperately tried to find an opening to call the action before eventually giving up. It didn't take long for Big E to hit the big ending, but before he could cover Corbin, he was attacked by Zayn, Cutler and Blake, but never fear, Apollo's here. Big E's brand new best buddy comes running down to make the save, and of course, a tag match is made. Now, obviously, because they're both egotistical megalomaniacs, Zayn and Corbin just can't get along. They bicker throughout the match, and Zayn even talks trash to Cutler and Blake on the outside at one point. When he gets back in, he's hit with a power slam. Big E tags in, he powers up, hits some of his trademark offense before eventually getting hit with a deep six for a 2 count. In the end, Sami almost nails Corbin with a haluva kick, but just about manages to stop short. But it's still the final straw. Corbin decides that he's had enough and takes Cutler and Blake with him as he leaves, and Sami is quickly defeated by Apollo Crews. In a backstage interview, Kayla Braxton asks Big E what we can expect from him in 2021. He says that he's planning on being a fighting champion, and next week he'll be issuing an open challenge. But Apollo Crews gets a little bit too big for his boots. He says that he's going to accept that challenge and points out that he helped Big E win the Intercontinental Championship and that Big E might not be as successful without Crews watching his back. Now Big E laughs, but it's not a genuine laugh. It's the type that says, "You are not funny, I'm going to kick your head in," and it just hints at some aggression coming out with Big E next week, which I'm really looking forward to. I'm glad that they're letting him do the Intercontinental Championship Open Challenge thing, and I hope that it's something that they let him do throughout his title reign, because it's a really easy way to rack up the wins and make him look legit and be that strong fighting champion that we all want him to be. That match next week will be a pretty good one, and I'm actually quite looking forward to it. Apparently, Daniel Bryan has never won the Royal Rumble, and just in case you were unaware of that fact when you tuned into Smackdown, Michael Cole hammered that point home with a Bludgeon Brothers sized mallet to make sure that you damn well knew by the end of the show. Now, I actually really enjoyed everything that we got surrounding Bryan this week, and I think that it has a lot of potential. It was revealed that Bryan had recruited the help of Gable and Otis to help him win the Rumble this year. Cesaro and Nakamura made fun of them, saying that the thought of either Bryan or Otis winning the Rumble was laughable, and this led to a tag match between Cesaro and Nakamura and the unlikely duo of Bryan and Otis. Bryan was hit with an uppercut going into the commercial break, and afterwards the heels had him isolated. They kept throwing him over the top rope, and with all the subtlety of a brick through your bedroom window, Michael Cole kept screaming, "If he was in the Rumble, he'd have been eliminated." Eventually, Bryan got the hot tag to Otis, who came in, hit a release suplex, a clothesline, a splash, the caterpillar, and went for the cover, but Nakamura broke it up. The finish of the match saw Otis save Bryan from a cross arm breaker and Nakamura tap out to the yes lock. Before this week, the thought had never really occurred to me that Daniel Bryan and Chad Gable would be a bloody good team, but now that it has, it's something that I really want. Bryan has always been exceptional at doing comedy throughout his career in WWE, and I think that Gable and Otis are two people that he could have massive chemistry with if they just give it some time to develop. I know that so far the Alpha Academy stuff has seen Gable be a manipulative heel towards Otis, but if they just drop that aspect and turn Gable face, the thought of Bryan, Gable and Otis as a three-man team is really appealing to me. If Bryan were to win the Rumble and go on to face Roman at WrestleMania, he'd be firmly back in that underdog spot where he performs best, and the odds would be stacked against him. Having Gable and Otis in his corner would allow him to even those odds, as well as giving Gable and Otis a massive push into the main event scene and making more stars on the Smackdown brand. For me, there's no downside to it, so here's hoping over the next few weeks they stick with this, because I think there is massive potential here. The final thing that we need to talk about when it comes to SmackDown is Roman Reigns, obviously, because everything surrounding Roman is always the best part of SmackDown these days. He opens up the show bigging himself up. He says that he's got golden hands, everything that he touches turns to greatness. He claims that he saved Paul Heyman when he was discarded last year and gave Jey the best year of his career. He says that he's always known what Jey is capable of, and that's why he pushes him. That's why he loves him, because he knows that Jey is main event Uso. But then he's interrupted by Kevin Owens, and he gets so exasperated. He's not happy in the slightest. At this point, he's just done with Owens. He wants him to go away. He says that Owens is a cockroach that just keeps coming back and keeps begging for more crumbs. He tells Owens that he had his time on the island of relevancy as a social media sweetheart for a few weeks, but now it's over and it's time to go away, before calling him an embarrassment. Owens says that Roman is right. Owens is an embarrassment, but not to himself, to Roman, because the fact that Owens is still here after being handcuffed to a cage, pulled off multiple ladders and beaten down time after time by Jey proves that Roman's family is a failure. It's clear that the big dog has been replaced by a giant. bitch. Owens says that he wants to fight Jey tonight, and when he's done with him, Roman's family is going to have nothing to celebrate. Throughout the night, we got a few backstage segments to keep the ball rolling. In one, Owens tells Adam Pearce that he's going to fight Jey either way, but things will be so much easier if Pearce just makes the match official. Poor Adam Pearce is clearly stuck between a rock and a hard place. Owens is giving him a hard time, but he's clearly terrified of the duo of Reigns and Heyman, knowing how much trouble they can cause if he gets on the wrong side of them. He tells Owens that he can have a match against anyone except Jey, and Owens digs the knife in even further, saying that he'll face Roman instead. Pearce says that he can't make that happen, and Owens just chews him out, gives him a piece of his mind, talks about how long they've known each other and how much Pearce has changed. In the end, Pearce just gives up and tells Owens that he can have the match. In another segment, Roman is not happy. He says that he feels unappreciated. He can't believe that someone made that match official after everything that he's done for the company, and he sends Heyman off to find out who made the match. Later, Heyman comes back and tells him that it was Adam Pearce. Roman tells Jey that Pearce and Owens are working to take everything that they've worked for away, and says that Jey needs to show Owens why he's main event Uso. The main event arrives, and when the match begins, Owens goes for a double leg takedown immediately. He hammers Jey with right hands, stomps the hell out of him, hits him with sentons, goes for the cover, but Jey kicks out at 2. Owens focuses on Jey's leg and talks trash to him, telling him that the worst part is that he knows that it's not Jey's fault. Eventually, Owens goes for the stunner. Jey counters with the kick, and as we go into the commercial break, Owens nails Jey with a super kick and throws him over the announce table. After the commercial, it doesn't take long for Jey to miss a top rope move, get hit with the stunner, and go down for the 3 count. Post-match, Owens is demanding that Reigns get down to the ring, but he's nowhere to be seen. So Owens hits Jey with another stunner and handcuffs him to the ropes. He super kicks him and beats him up, all the while screaming for Roman to show some pride and come and protect his family, but he's still nowhere to be seen. Owens decides to go looking for Roman. He takes the still handcuffed Jey with him. He hits him with another super kick, but afterwards is ambushed by Reigns and the tides get turned. Reigns and Uso beat down Owens for an extended period all the way until the show goes off air. I love everything about this. I just can't get enough of this fired up, laser focused, pissed off version of Kevin Owens, and I just want to see him get his hands on Roman, not just for what Roman has done to Owens, but what he's doing to Jey, because I feel really sorry for Jey. He's stuck between 2 men, one who is supposed to be his family, is supposed to love him, have his best interests at heart, but really is just using him as a slave, as a human shield. The other man is on the warpath, just wants revenge for everything that Roman and Jey have done to him, which is understandable but also sad, because we all know that it's not Jey's fault. He's been broken and conditioned by Roman over the last few months, and he really has no choice in the matter. It's pretty cool that Owens is still willing to beat Jey down, to send a message to Roman, and in the process proves that Roman doesn't really care about Jey as much as he claims to. Each week it just gets more and more captivating, and it makes you wonder how long Jey can last. When is he going to snap? How much can he take? And I just think that they're telling their story so well. The eventual blow-off match between Owens and Reigns is going to be amazing, because everything that they've done so far is great. And when Jey eventually does snap, it's going to be such good TV. Raw. What is there to say about Raw, really? Legends Night wasn't quite as bad as I thought it was going to be, and that is one of the only upsides that I can think of. Other than that, it felt like a show full of nothing other than a long string of filler matches that were hampered by having Tom Phillips on commentary and storylines that either went nowhere or hurt the people involved. To kick things off, we had a crap edition of Miz TV, which is like getting on a train and then crashing immediately as you come out of the station. The New Day invaded the show and they renamed it The New Day Talks. They asked a bunch of pointless questions which Morrison answered. This annoyed The Miz and eventually he blew up at the New Day and had a go at them for making a joke out of him. Then Teddy Long appears and unsurprisingly he makes a tag match which was fairly standard. New Day got most of the offense, Kofi got beaten down for a bit, got the hot tag, and in the end Xavier picked up the win with the Shining Wizard. Charlotte and Asuka faced off against Peyton and Lacey. Now this is a double dip of boredom for me because I find tag matches hard enough to keep up with even when the commentary is good, which it wasn't. And on top of that, Charlotte's involved and I'm not the biggest Charlotte fan. As a person, I'm sure she's fine. As a wrestler, I'm sure she's great. As a character, she makes me want to rip my own hair out. Despite being the Raw Women's Champion, Asuka was barely involved in this match. She was just there to be a supporting character in the Charlotte Flair show, because this match was all about Charlotte. The story centred around her, and she got all the decent offense. She hit chops, and a big boot, and a moonsault, and natural selection, and the story that ran through the match was Lacey flirting with Ric Flair, which, let's be honest, is gross. Now, I only know this because of recaps, because commentary did not communicate it well at all. In fact, I thought that Lacey was trying to intimidate Rick, but apparently, from recaps, she was trying to flirt with him. This led to Rick getting distracted, trying to trip over Peyton, but actually tripping Charlotte, and that cost the faces the match. Post-match, Charlotte was really mad, and she tells Rick to stay out of her business, because she has apparently been to the Roman Reigns school of how to treat your family. She brings him down when it suits her, but as soon as he's an inconvenience, she tells him to do one. Then we got AJ Styles versus Elias, and again, it wasn't good, it wasn't bad, it just wasn't anything special. Maybe if I could have seen the in-ring action, I would have enjoyed it more, but having Tom Phillips on commentary makes everything bad for me, and I can't express that enough. Elias gained control early using the power game. Styles tried to fight back into it, but ended up getting hit with a chokeslam. Elias countered the phenomenal forearm with a knee strike, but ultimately it was a brainbuster and the Styles Clash that picked up the win for AJ. Then, post-match, Jackson Riker is getting ready to destroy AJ with a guitar and almost kicks it out of his hands. Commentary acts like it's the coolest thing they've ever seen, ever. Now maybe if I'd have had the visual, I'd have been a bit more into it, but to be honest, it did nothing for me. Something that I didn't see coming at all was Riddle and Lashley being one of the better parts of this show. Riddle actually shows a little glimmer of his former NXT self in this match, really switching on that intensity. He attacks Lashley before the bell has even rung, trying to gain himself an advantage, and Lashley goes into this match pissed off. We get a pretty cool spot where Riddle gets sent into the post at one point, and it sounds really loud and really nasty. He tries striking it out with Lashley at one point, but it has little to no effect. He does manage to get a bit of offense in though. He hits a PK and a Broton and a final flash knee strike. In the end, however, Lashley hits the Dominator, applies the Hurt Lock, Riddle taps, but the ref doesn't see it because he's trying to avoid Riddle's flailing body parts, and then he scoops Lashley up for the win. I enjoyed seeing a small glimpse of the old Riddle here, but honestly it just made me realise that I really wish that they could just book him right, because I loved him in NXT. He seems to have some decent in-ring chemistry with Lashley though, so hopefully they'll have a really good match at the Rumble, and if he does capture the United States Championship, maybe a title run can do a little bit of the legwork towards getting him back on track. I doubt it though, because they're probably going to keep doing comedy stuff like telling the Big Show to call himself the Big Pro. They say the higher you are, the harder you fall, and I honestly think that that's true. And never has it been more clearly demonstrated than by Shayna Baszler. Once upon a time, Baszler was treated like an unstoppable monster. She terrified the likes of Dakota Kai in NXT. She is undoubtedly one of the best NXT Women's Champions of all time. Maybe even one of the best NXT Champions regardless of gender. But now, she's losing to Dana Brooke. Shayna is scheduled to have a one-on-one match with Mandy Rose, but attacks Mandy before the match can begin. Dana replaces Mandy, but the match doesn't last long. Shayna quickly locks in the Kirifuda clutch, but Dana has it perfectly scouted and counters with a pinfall and picks up the win. Shayna keeps the Kirifuda clutch locked in, but Mandy makes the save, and together Mandy and Dana beat down Shayna. I honestly don't know what they can do to save Shayna at this point. Before this match, I was thinking to myself, I hope Shayna wins the Rumble this year. That could be a cool story and it might actually get her back on track. But at this point, I don't think that it's even that believable. I don't have anything against Dana Brooke. I don't even think that Dana beating Shayna would be that bad, but I definitely don't think that it should be happening that quickly. Shayna has done so much already in a WWE career, and it's just a shame to see her fall so far. I hope that next time they do a superstar shake-up, they get her over to Smackdown, because there they seem to have at least a little bit more of a grasp of what to do with the women, and Shayna having a feud with Bianca Belair or Sasha or Bayley or even Carmella would be way more interesting than her just losing to Dana Brooke in under 5 minutes. I really hope that they're not planning on breaking up the Hurt Business. Not only did Bobby Lashley get screwed this week by the referee not realising Riddle had tapped out, during their match with the Lucha House Party, Alexander and Benjamin could not get on the same page. Alexander, who's been getting a little bit too big for his boots over the last few weeks, kept tagging himself in. Benjamin was getting annoyed at this, they ended up arguing, and Lindsay Dorado capitalised upon this and picked up the win for his team. Now, this could just be a case of them trying to build new contenders for the Hurt Business, but I could also easily see a situation where Riddle picks up the United States Championship at the Rumble, Alexander and Benjamin lose the tag titles, MVP gets really mad at them for not being able to get along, and they all just go their separate ways. It'd be a massive, massive shame, because over the last few weeks and months, the Hurt Business has been one of the only acts on Raw with a little bit of credibility that's been booked relatively well, and if they're actually going to break them up, what's next for all of the members? I just really hope that it doesn't happen. Not a good week for the Hurt Business. Talk about wasted potential. Angel Garza is in the 24/7 scene, or was as of this episode of Raw. He then ended up losing it to R-Truth, of course, but it's just something that I wanted to quickly touch on because I don't know why that is happening. Garza has so much potential. He was so cool when he was in NXT, and yeah, I know that's the thing that I always go back to. Oh, this person was great when they were in NXT. I loved this person when they were in NXT, and you must just be sitting there thinking, oh God, Mason, just watch NXT and don't watch anything else. But I do like watching other parts of the product, and it makes it harder to invest in NXT when the people that are there who are cool will move up to the main roster eventually and then just end up in the 24/7 division. I just didn't understand why this was a thing. He's got so much charisma, so much talent, and to be stuck in the 24/7 division is just a massive slap in the face to Garza, in my opinion. I can't believe that I'm about to say it because I'm not exactly his number one fan, but in my opinion, the very best thing about Raw this week was Randy Orton. It was just one of those weeks where he was in his element, and we all know that when Randy Orton's good, he's good. In a backstage interview with Sarah Schreiber, he says that last week the voices in his head were begging him to set Alexa Bliss on fire, but facing the Fiend has changed him. For some reason, he showed Alexa compassion and mercy, which he hates himself for, but he realises that he can mould and sculpt that hatred. He says to Sarah to imagine what he would be capable of if he focused that newfound self-hatred on somebody else. He'd be capable of anything, he says. When Sarah asks him about The Fiend, he refuses to comment, and he says that he's going legend hunting, and this starts a series of skits throughout the night where Randy is that one guy hanging around by a supermarket after closing time who's had way too much to drink and he's trying to fight everybody that he sees. First off, he stumbles across the Big Show and he does his very best to fire Big Show up and get him to fight him. He reminds him of what he did last time they met and how he destroyed him, and he makes fun of him, saying that he should be embarrassed to be lumped in with the legends now. But Big Show isn't having any of it. He tells him that he's proud to be one of the legends and just doesn't rise to him at all. Eventually Orton gives up and goes off looking for a fight elsewhere. Presumably trying to get himself inducted into the Hall of Pain, the next person that Orton tries to start a fight with is Mark Henry. Orton says that he's entering the Royal Rumble and he asks Mark Henry if he'll be in the Rumble, but then quickly points out that after all the wear and tear that Henry's taken, he'll probably never compete in a Rumble again. He tells Henry that he owes him a lot of receipts for all the world's strongest slams that he's taken over the years, but he'll give him a free pass, providing that Henry skedaddles and gets the hell out of Orton's arena right away. Rather than getting fired up and actually kicking Randy's head in like he deserves, Henry just actually leaves. Finally, Orton comes across Ric Flair. He tells Flair that he was considering having him walk him out to his match with Jeff Hardy, but he doesn't want Flair costing him the match like he did with Charlotte. Flair tells Orton that he will never walk him out to the ring ever again. Orton says that whilst Flair might look, walk and talk like the man that used to be the dirtiest player in the game that taught Orton everything that he knows, all he is now is a pathetic old man that's clinging to relevancy through a daughter that is better than he ever was. In his match with Jeff Hardy, Randy Orton gets most of the offense. He beats Hardy up on the outside, throws him into the announce table, bounces his face off the canvas multiple times, and basically deals out punishment for large parts of the match. Hardy does get little bits of offense like a jawbreaker, an inverted atomic drop, a whisper in the wind, but in the end Orton hits the draping DDT and then advertises the RKO. Hardy goes for the twist of fate, but Randy hits the RKO anyway. I'm actually quite intrigued by this latest aspect of Orton's character. So far, he's always shown hatred towards others whilst holding himself in higher regard, but this newfound self-hatred might actually propel him on a journey of self-destruction as he seeks to get people to fight him and dish out punishment to repent for the ultimate sin of showing some empathy towards Alexa Bliss. I hope that they can find an interesting way to develop it, because I think that this storyline actually has a lot of potential. Edge and Orton at WrestleMania has been rumoured for a long time, and whilst I'm not that interested in it, I think that others would be. And I do like the dynamic that they can have of Edge being Orton's former best friend, and Orton desperately trying to get Edge to punish him and dish out the pain. And now it's time to talk about the main event. Honestly guys, it's just so disheartening. I know Drew Macintyre and Keith Lee are both great. I know how much I could enjoy this match if they just had the right commentary team. I've listened to the recaps. It actually sounds like it was a pretty fun match. But it is full of the worst kind of Tomisms. Tom doesn't even try to call this match, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that other than a forearm smash, the first move called in this match is the Future Shock DDT. And after that, there's not much left of the match. Keith Lee actually gets to show what he's capable of, going up top and delivering an avalanche Spanish fly. Drew gets a spinebuster with a jackknife cover, and in the end, McIntyre goes for the Claymore, gets caught, but it doesn't take long for him to try again, and the second time he connects. As if the taste in my mouth wasn't bitter enough at that point, out comes Bill Goldberg. The number one thing that I said I didn't want WWE to do in 2021 was rely on legends and part-timers to pop ratings. And the first Raw of the year, out comes Bill fucking Goldberg to challenge Drew for a title match at the Royal Rumble. And he does so in the most nonsensical, rambling promo you can imagine. It made no sense. He says that Drew has no respect for the legends, that he thinks that he could beat them all in their prime while he's in his prime, and Goldberg wants to prove him wrong. It made no sense, and it's infuriating, because rather than elevate new talent, they just go back to the well, once again, diminishing returns, bringing Goldberg back. The one upside is that he's not challenging Roman, but if Goldberg wins at the Rumble, which he will, because Vince will think having Goldberg as champion will improve ratings, they'll probably end up challenging Roman at WrestleMania and they'll do a title versus title match. Apparently the reason that they're doing this is that Vince doesn't feel there's anybody that's ready to face Drew right now, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You don't elevate anyone, so you have to bring back part-timers, because no one is elevated. I hate it. This made no sense, and honestly, I have no interest in seeing this match whatsoever. NXT. It ain't a hot take, but going from Raw to NXT is a completely different world. I was really looking forward to New Year's Evil, and it delivered on every single front. I couldn't have had a more drastically different experience from one show to the other. The commentary did a great job here, and everything on the show, other than one bit that I thought fell a bit flat, had a bit of weight to it, drove the story forward, and was just in general a lot of fun. The show kicks off with Karrion Kross versus Damian Priest, which was most certainly takeover quality. Priest was not intimidated in the slightest, and to be honest I thought it made him look pretty cool. He starts hitting strikes in the early moments, but Kross eventually takes control and starts tossing him around the ring while commentary talk about how effortless it looks. Kross sends Priest into the steel steps and he starts focusing in on the ribs that were damaged when he powerbombed him through the stage a few weeks back. Priest fights back and he manages to get a big right hand that Wade Barrett says would have knocked out 95% of the roster, and shortly afterwards manages to deliver a flatliner. Priest gets a clothesline and the broken arrow, but Kross kicks out at 2. Kross takes back control, puts Priest in the Tree of Woe, and commentary talk about the fact that because of Priest's height, it's much harder for him to get out of this, and Kross manages to deliver a massive knee strike to the midsection. Priest gets both the Razor's Edge and South of Heaven, but Kross kicks out of both of those. Kross gets a powerbomb which Priest kicks out of, and in the end, Kross hits a Saito suplex and delivers a strike to make sure that Priest stays down for the 3 count. I actually thought that this was a really enjoyable start to the show. 2 big guys trying to wreck each other, slugging it out, and coming out of the match looking better than they did going into it. It was a solid reintroduction for Karrion Kross, who looks like an effortless, unstoppable monster that's just going to keep on coming no matter what, and can outpower even the bigger guys in NXT. It puts him firmly back on the road towards the main event. Meanwhile, Damian Priest looks really cool and tough, standing toe-to-toe with a former NXT champion, refusing to go down no matter what he gets hit with, and showing no sign of intimidation. If the rumours are true and he's due to go to the main roster soon, I'm honestly going to miss him. He's become a really great character and a valuable member of the NXT roster. With TakeOver coming up on February 14th, I really hope that he gets one final TakeOver match and a decent send-off. I don't have that much to say about the Cruiserweight title match between Santos Escobar and Gran Metalik because disappointingly, the commentary didn't do that great of a job. I don't think that I'd have got as much out of this match as sighted viewers anyway, because the lucha style is more visual, with that back and forth, lightning pace, the quick, crisp, gymnastic moves and the dives, but Vic Joseph just didn't manage to call that many moves and I didn't get that many notes. It seemed like it was full throttle from the start, Gran Metalik was in control, and he did get a decent amount of offense, but in the end, Santos retained that Cruiserweight Championship. It's a shame that I couldn't enjoy this match because I'm sure if I could have seen it, it was probably really good. It's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. Maybe if this had been a normal show, it might have annoyed me a bit more, but with the quality of the rest of the show, it didn't bother me that much, to be honest. It seems that the transformation of Xia Li is complete. She had a match on New Year's Evil against a nameless opponent, or at least, if she had a name, I didn't catch it, and I don't think that it really matters because it didn't take long for Xia to destroy her. Xia just ignored any pain when she got hit with offense, and eventually she hit a knee strike and what Vic called a devastating kick. The hooded woman was at ringside watching Xia at work, and I cannot wait to find out who she is. This storyline has been bloody good, man. It's been different and intriguing and weird, and I just can't wait to see where it goes because it's just so different, and that makes it captivating, in my opinion. We got a last woman standing match between Rhea Ripley and Raquel Gonzalez. Now, usually I'm not much for the last man standing stipulation because of the stop-start nature of the match, but this one was actually pretty good and there was some really good spots. Ripley begins the match with aggression. She gets a Luthez press, but it doesn't have that much effect because Gonzalez ends up hitting a massive clothesline. There's this weird bit, right, where Gonzalez is screaming at Ripley that it was way too easy to fool her into thinking they were friends. And I was like, yeah, all you had to do was team with her, travel with her, and get matching tattoos. Not much effort at all. There's a cool bit where Ripley handcuffs Gonzalez to the steel fence, but Gonzalez uses her power to just break free and uses the handcuffs as weapons. Ripley gets the hammer that they use to ring the bell, but Gonzalez sends Ripley face first into the ring bell instead. She puts Ripley through the announce table and buries her under the rubble, but Ripley makes it back to her feet. A bit later, Ripley sends Gonzalez crashing through a glass door. They're fighting all through the Capitol Wrestling Center, and then Dakota Kai gets involved. Dakota absolutely takes it to Ripley with a kendo stick, which sounds nasty, but Ripley ends up stuffing Dakota in a locker and we don't see her anymore. Ripley ends up getting an inverted cloverleaf. Gonzalez finds out of it and sends Ripley face first into the stage, and to end the match, Gonzalez uses a single arm powerbomb to send Ripley through the stage. Both women are down, but Gonzalez beats the count. I really like that they let them go all out with this match. That glass door spot sounded nasty, Gonzalez breaking out of the handcuffs was really cool, and they're really putting over that single arm powerbomb as a move that is truly devastating. This might end up being one of Rhea's final matches in NXT, which is a shame. I don't want her to go to the main roster, but I don't know what else there is for her to do. Now maybe she will be competing in something that I'll be talking about in a minute, but if she doesn't, I really do feel like she's going to be on her way to the main roster soon. So Gonzalez getting this win is great, and I can't wait to see Gonzalez versus Shirai, which we'll most likely get at the next takeover. Now, this next part of the show was the worst part, in my opinion. I don't know whether it happened because the Ciampa-Thatcher pit fight match couldn't happen, or whether it was planned all along, but it just fell flat, in my opinion. The Way arrive with a police escort, and Gargano cuts a promo about how great he is and breaking his curse, and makes far too many puns about The Way. In the end, he says that him and Austin are entering the Dusty Cup. Shotzi arrives, and Austin tells her that he's not going to let her ruin this celebration, so she uses the tank to shoot him in the balls, which was, in all fairness, pretty entertaining. Then Kushida arrives for some reason, and Dexter Lumis makes it a mixed gender tag match. The Garganos aren't ready for it at all, and Shotzi and Kushida run rings around them for the most part. Austin tries to get involved at one point, gets hit in the balls again, and then Kushida rolls Gargano up for the win. As much as I love the Garganos, I don't feel like The Way have found their chemistry as a faction yet. The promo felt like every other promo that Gargano has cut since The Way became a thing, and the match itself had nothing that interested me at all, and it's a massive shame. Regal announces that we're going to get the first ever women's Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, and I'm pretty excited about this one. I have no idea who's going to be in it or when it's going to start, but I think that it'll end up being really, really good. So maybe Rhea Ripley could compete in this. I know that I said that she doesn't have much left to do, but this is something new for NXT. So if she could get with someone like Shotzi Blackheart, she might actually have something left to do in NXT, but I don't see it happening. Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai could be another team. If Candice is cleared in time, Candice and Indy could be a team. So there should be some pretty cool stuff going into this, and I'm really, really excited about it. So we arrive at the main event, O'Reilly versus Balor 2, NXT Championship on the line, and it was a damn good match. It was pretty much as good as I thought it was going to be. It wasn't quite as good as the first encounter, but I wasn't expecting that first match to be as good as it was, so this one didn't have the advantage of being a surprise match of the year contender. A big part of the reason why I enjoyed this match was Wade Barrett. He made the first match great, talking about the body shots that Balor was landing and the effect that it was having on O'Reilly, and he did just as much of a good job in this match. At the beginning of the match, he was talking about what it's like to come back from an injury like Balor's. He says that when you are cleared, you are not 100%. They clear you at like 85%. Which means that you're good enough to get back in the ring, but not necessarily fully recovered. As you would expect from an in-ring technician like O'Reilly, he focuses in on Balor's jaw early on, applying holds and repeatedly trying to hit strikes that Balor avoids. In fact, Finn does such a good job of protecting his jaw that O'Reilly switches his game plan up and starts applying arm bars, focusing on the elbows and wrist instead. Eventually, Balor gets an abdominal stretch. O'Reilly tries to get to the ropes, but Balor blocks it, and left with only one choice, O'Reilly breaks the hold by getting the ropes with his mouth. But Balor takes advantage, smashing O'Reilly's jaw off the ropes, and the tide is turned. From here on out, it's Balor that's focusing on the jaw, and he takes control for a good few minutes. Eventually, O'Reilly gets a big knee strike to the midsection, lets loose with strikes, but he can't go full throttle because of the pain in his jaw. He hits a big kick that sends him tumbling out of the ring, and he just about beats the count back in. O'Reilly cycles through various holds, transitioning as needed whenever Balor is about to escape. Eventually, Balor hits a big shot to the jaw and creates the separation that he desperately needs. He ends up applying a crossface in the centre of the ring. O'Reilly has nowhere to go and he starts to fade, but hits a shot to Finn's wrist and manages to escape. They start slugging it out, hitting each other with strikes, and Balor gets a sling blade, follows it with a double stomp, sends O'Reilly crashing into the turnbuckles face first and then goes up top. But before he can capitalise, O'Reilly meets him up there and delivers a suplex, follows it with a brainbuster and starts applying arm bars. The end comes when Balor hits a big shot to O'Reilly's kidneys that drops him. He applies an abdominal stretch, O'Reilly tries to escape, but Balor goes after the jaw and O'Reilly is forced to tap. Once again, I feel like O'Reilly comes out of this looking fantastic. He showed all the heart of a true underdog and the innovation of an in-ring expert. Personally, I've never seen anything like that spot where he gets the ropes with his mouth to break the hold, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what's next for him. It's a shame that he didn't win, but I still believe the NXT Championship's in his future, and I can't wait to see him put on more takeover matches as a single superstar. As for Finn Balor, he looks merciless in this match, going after O'Reilly, trying to punish him for what he did last time. I'm really excited for what's next for him. Pete Dunne was in the crowd, so maybe we'll finally get Dunne versus Balor, which will be an absolutely outstanding match. This was a great way to cap off the opening show of 2021 for NXT. And with that, we've reached the end of the show. those were my thoughts on this week in WWE, but if you've got something to say, then you've got options. You can drop your thoughts in the comments section. Find, follow, and get in touch via Twitter at Mason_WITD, or you can email wrestlinginthedark@gmail.com. Thanks for your time, I'll see you next week. For now I'm off, and you should have a good one.